What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 10 of Spike Down with Vansili and Roy. And as you can tell, I'm still stuck in hotel jail with the best lighting ever. Roy, for once, you have better lighting than me, but despite good or bad lighting, your face is always going to be more beautiful than mine.
Yeah, I really like the new Nokia webcam you got going on. It looks beautiful on you. Makes you look great.
Wow, bro! I just said you're more beautiful than me. You didn't even take that compliment. Are you not? Are you a person that doesn't like to take compliments?
Yeah, I can't take it. It's too much for me. I'd rather just talk about VALORANT.
Let's do that then. Let's just talk about VALORANT then. We had some interesting games that started over the week, actually, that just went by, especially with the new patch going into 8.11. When we discussed things last week here, Roy, we were saying, there's probably going to be a lot of teams here that are going to try to shift towards a new meta, and then some teams might be falling behind, and maybe some teams still not believing in the changes of Neon and ISO. So I actually want to dive a little bit deeper into that one a little bit more with some of the teams that actually did try to operate around Neon and ISO, and we'll talk about that first game right now. It's Winthrop University against OXG. They tried to do... For Winthrop's side, at least, like not only just use Neon or just use ISO that we've seen on VCT this week, if you've been watching, but trying to use both at the same time against Oxygen Esports. Yes. I mean, to be honest, like the map on Lotus, it feels like it makes sense. I want you to talk to me about at least like their setups and stuff like that. If you still see like some value into using both of these both of these agents for the map, and what's your real take on it?
I actually do like the Neon ISO, to be honest. I think it has some potential. I just don't know about the Breach solo initiator with that composition. I almost feel like they might have been better off with like a Gecko, just so they have like some kind of pop power besides like just stuns. And obviously information gathering helps a ton. But yeah, just quick anecdote. I actually played Premier yesterday night for finals in the Western Conference. And we were playing Lotus as our last map. No, we actually lost in the finals to like these players I've never even seen in ranked. And they were running Neon, ISO, and Gecko. And it was actually insane. But they weren't playing it like you would think. Like they weren't just locking it in and running it down. They were like taking map control. They were like util bombing sites. Like it was actually kind of sick. And I could kind of see the vision with Winthrop University. I could almost see what they were trying to cook. But I think Oxygen was too fundamentally sound, to be honest. And they were just a little bit too comfortable with the old meta comps.
Yeah, I think if anything, they let the defensive side slip if it comes down to that Lotus map. I think on paper, it still kind of looks really good. When you're talking about that, yes, there's maybe no scans, but there's still good flashes of the Breach. And there's also a lot of good stall, though, with the Neon and the Breach together. And the ISO playing solo towards the C site, I think it makes sense. I know we've seen Talon, for example, use ISO with an op on Icebox. I think it's very similar where you could have an ISO op on C side and just lock that down and utilize double tap at your best moments to make sure that you could just anchor that side. While who's going to be moving around the map and trying to fight would be that Breach and that Neon. So they did a lot of these 1-3-1 setups. So you could also try to do like vulnerability combinations towards mount control, and then you can play retake towards the A site. But that was the issue. They weren't playing retake towards the A site on Lotus, and on top of that, they weren't adding enough pressure on the defense, in my opinion, that it gave a lot of room for Oxygen Esports to work with around that map on Lotus. They could go towards B, they could fake back, they could rotate back, and and especially when you're not playing with a Gecko or a Fade or something in the Copper Winthrop to try to find information, it's only going to be on your ISO peeking out and getting punished, or your Cypher playing inside the site instead of retake and dying, and you have util to stall. So I think the game plan could have been refined where it could have made it a little bit closer, but outside of that, I think that was the biggest pain point, I think, to the loss of that map. But they tried to bring that out on Sunset as well, if I'm not mistaken here, Roy. And I want to know what you thought about the Sunset, at least, in that comp.
On Bind, you mean?
Sorry, Bind. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Neon is completely playable on that map, to be honest. I'm not entirely sold on the ISO on that map. I do think it has its uses, like the vulnerability. Okay, the vulnerability to use as a stall on defense side is actually low-key kind of OP. Because like you can, it's okay, they're running up short A, you just send your vulnerability, and now everyone is spamming, right? It's like the spams are actually what's really the harm is like you take double damage. So even if you get hit by one bullet, that's still that's half your HP gone, just like by one stray bullet.
Imagine that with an Odin,
because you're vulnerable.
Imagine that with an Odin on short A.
The Neon, I wanted to see that so bad. The ISO vulnerable into the Neon Odin. Oh my God!
Yeah,
break the game,
that could have been something that could have used. but that's the thing too. At least I'll commend Winthrop University for trying to pull that out a little bit earlier when the patch just started. Whilst us, for example, in VCTs, they had like an extra week to prep and stuff like that to really try to get a nice formula on how you could elevate and take advantage of the ISO and the neon. Just I don't know if you guys saw the clips of jogging mode, but that was kind of sick over the weekend. But if not, I think if they want to continue with that plan, though, there might be a possibility. I mean, we'll go into predictions when we have a chance, but if they have actually refined and checked VODs and make sure that they understood like what are the real pros and cons of those agent tweaks, then I'm sure they're going to be able to bounce back. But at least for now, it just seems like it was just a easy that victory, right? A nice little 2 on that one. But we'll go into another game here that's a little bit more standard of what we saw. Maybe seeing a little bit more Deadlock. Actually, Deadlock continues to be a very, very useful, I guess, as a composition, for lack of better words to use right now. But she's often used still in Challengers, and this time for M80 against Fluffy Aimers, where M80, yes, they maybe dropped a map at the very beginning against Fluffy Aimers, but it almost feels like this is like the M80 way now, right? They're always going to play this comeback and win this series 2-1. But I want to know what you thought about the series overall from M80.
Yeah, is M80 the C9 of Challengers? They can't win their maps.
Okay, wait. Elaborate.
What's happening?
Elaborate.
You know how Cloud9 can't win their first maps ever?
Yeah.
It's like they've lost what 5 out of the last 6 first maps they've played. Yeah. It almost feels like maybe might just be that, or maybe they just can't
even
win
today
2-0s. Yeah.
As we record this today, they just played against G2, and I was like, wait, they're about to win a set here, and then they just lost 13-11. So maybe they continue to be the C9 curse, unfortunately, here for M80 side. So M80, the challengers of C9, I could see that. And you're definitely starting to see as well, like, yes, there's still a little bit of pain points for M80, but I think overall you're starting to see some sort of synergy for this M80 squad, especially with Net coming into the roster, with Xander finding good calls now for the team. Yeah, being the IGL, and then actually you have your Koala Noobs and Nismo and shooting forward, and BCJ is doing a good job too.
Yeah,
so I think
BCJ's
overall
really stepped up, by the way.
Exactly. I think the team looks good. If we're going to do a pulse of this team now in week number 4, it's just that unfortunately they're not the M80 of last season, right? Which is okay.
Yep.
It's okay to be compared to last season and realize that you've lost some firing power and maybe a little brains here with John Cuda and EU. But I still think that overall they have the right puzzle pieces to still try to or still able to improve so that they could fight in the mid pack and do a deep run in playoffs.
Absolutely. From my perspective, to me, I know I'm kind of comparing these teams to tier 1 teams, but to me, M80 is actually probably, in terms of style, the closest to G2, because they don't really need a single star player to pop off for them, right? Like they don't really need that anymore. They're kind of they're pretty much all insane players. As long as they're playing together, as long as they play the fundamentals, as long as they stick to their game, I think they're going to be fine, to be honest. I think it's a bit of a rocky road. And then like recent roster swaps into complete meta change is probably a big challenge for the IGL and the coaches and all the players. So, I mean, I think they're doing fine, all things
definitely. Considered. Yeah, if anything, like they'll probably have to work on a little bit more of that synergy. I think there is going to be. I have seen a little bit more like attempts to do heroic plays or players that have no choice but to do heroic plays to pull their pants up and carry the team over to the next round. So hopefully that's going to get ironed out going into week number 5. But at least for now, it's showing promise at least, right? Where I don't think. We should be harping on M80 as much in week 1 as we are now. Where we're starting to see like the curve come back up. And then we'll see where the limit's going to be from now as we get closer to playoffs.
Can I tell you something crazy? You're probably not going to believe this fact when I tell it to you.
Is it in secret? Tell me in secret.
It's not that secret.
As in like right now. Leak it.
The Deadlock Cypher comp. I'm plugging my content in right here because I'm actually making a video on this on my channel.
Okay.
The Deadlock Cypher comp has a 100% win rate. Every team that has ran Cypher Deadlock has won their matches out of like 10, 11 matches that have been played with that comp.
Including VCT teams, right?
Yes. Tier 2 in North America, Tier 1 North America, and Tier 1 EU. Every team and across different leagues that has tried this comp with Cypher Deadlock has won their matches.
It's okay.
Is that not an insane fact? That's kind of crazy.
What's your TLDR as to why it's so successful?
I think it's very oppressive. I think Turtle Troops might have actually just broken Valorant in their own weird way, and now everyone is realizing that it's actually sort of insane, dude. It's crazy. But yeah. Anyways,
okay.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail us, but it was a pretty.
No, I kind of
nerd out about it,
dude. You know me. Every time the train derails, I have to try to bring it back. But at the same time, I'm kind of like down to ride like the chaos of this before we get back. So like, quick question for you then, because exactly. Professional yappers. It was going to be a 30-minute recording. Sorry, chat. Click the link below or whatever the story is later on if you want to watch the full show. Anyways, to go back to that question though, or to go back to your statement, I think it's a great statement to pull out and to see that yes, there is a 100% win rate, but to try to understand why, yes, it is very oppressive. It's good for a deadlock on the attack, and it's still good for both of their teams to hold on defense, and it allows for you to be more explosive. Right. But what about the changes now to Neon and to ISO, where Neon can now be your forefront to move around a lot and break walls and retreat more quickly? There's going to have to be some sort of new meta to counter already this new meta of this double controller, right? And I do agree with you. It's potentially not going to be like... Yes. Go ahead.
My take is that this comp is actually future-proofed. That is the craziest part. It already works well into the Neon, because Neon slides into the site, gets hit by a trap, teammates have to break it, or she has to break it, and then they get stunned. They can't even hit the site. And even if they try a second wave of utility to take further space onto the site, you're getting boogie bomb, crouch bombed by deadlock, and then you can just get walled off. There's just so much counter utility that the Neon comp actually doesn't even get value when it comes time to hitting sites. So like, is this actually the future? Are we seeing the future of Valorant before our very own eyes? It is a very good question, and I'm not trying to make it a bigger deal than it is, but I actually think Turtle Troops, Loki, or Dark Zero now, they have actually cooked. They have actually cooked a meta that is viable. It's cheesy and it's extremely versatile because you can either stack the gadgets together, right? Or you can spread them out and have double the coverage across the map. And neither of the Sentinels have a range restriction. So like the possibilities are literally endless. You can put gadgets anywhere.
That is also very true. That is also very true. I think that
was
like
weird.
that's what was making even Killjoy and Chambers so strong at the beginning, at the inception of those agents, where there was no range on the turret, no range on the alarm bot, no range on 2 trips on Chamber.
Yeah, on Chamber.
So you could just place them all over the place. Yeah, exactly, right? So you could really stack sites more aggressively, and I do agree with you. Actually, you're starting to see that if a deadlock is playing on one side on defense, there's more like a 4-1 on the other side too. So yeah, maybe you're onto something here. I think we're in an interesting part of Valorant in 8.11 where we're still trying to find which we're at a fork. So you have in the middle now, which you just mentioned, a double Sentinel comp, and then you have Viper nerfs. Maybe we're going to bring more initiators. So you have double initiator going through, and then now you have another one with a double controller that still stays pretty strong because you're still seeing some like Viper Harbor, some Omen Harbor, some Omen Vipers on certain maps like Icebox, or maybe now even a 4th lane with the ISO and the Neon. Especially now that you're starting to discover the real potential of what Neon could bring to a team and how very explosive you could get in the right hands. That's crazy. So this is going to be fun to watch when it unravels within the next couple of weeks until we get to playoffs of Challengers and playoffs of VCTs, and I'm freaking here for it.
Dude, I'm so here for it. Finally, actually very versatile meta. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I think it started well with Sunset coming out first, right? So yeah, that's nice little tangent. I hit the switch there. We're going back on the rail, right? Back onto the rail, back on tracks, and now we're going to continue to talk about the matches that just passed over at during week 4. And one of them is actually a huge upset that we got to go back into literally talking about the changes of the meta in 8.11. It's nice to talk about this VCT Esports upset against Moistex Shopify, which was dope because that Haven game with an ISO and a Jet. Dude, Ferbsa looked amazing on that ISO and how much value he brought to the team. Yeah. Talk me through this.
Yeah, so number one, I've been a huge fan of Ferbsa for a long time. Obviously, I was on a team with him, so I'm slightly biased. But I think objectively, he's honestly just a really good player, and he's very fun to be on a team with. And I think that kind of demeanor and that kind of confidence on a team can obviously elevate everyone. But that being said, more specifically about this matchup, from my POV, it felt like it was like a clash of old meta, like very old meta, right? Like Sova Fade is not a new thing. It's like double info initiators, double scans has been pretty popular for a while. And then obviously Shopify we're trying to pull it back into the Haven meta. But on the other hand, SAD Esports, they're kind of like on the Zoomer meta. Like, look at their comp. It doesn't even make sense. It's like Jet, ISO, Sova, Astra, and then Deadlock as the only gadget sentinel. Seems kind of wild until you see the way they were playing it, which was like, dude, they were just rolling over map control. It was so free for them. Like they got what, 8 rounds on their attack side. Their defense also looked pretty clean. They were very aware of their gaps, so like they understood the fundamental flaws of their composition, and they knew what parts of the map were pretty exposed, and they were like hyper aware of these gaps, and they were like playing very well around it. So I don't even think it was a fluke, to be honest. I genuinely think that SAD, one, has actually found a roster that makes sense for them. 2, they're actually starting to cook, and Darkest is getting pretty comfortable on the IGL role, and now we're starting to see results like that, where I mean they took down Shopify in a 2-0. That's kind of crazy.
I totally forgot to talk about that when I was hosting that day, because I had to step in to talk about or to host that day, and I totally forgot that you had Darkest coming in as an IGL, and his numbers are still very good. So it's very nice to see that you're falling into this meta of the nice little storyline that the broadcast team likes to hype up for any league is the fracking IGL, right? So you're getting a little bit of that, but I also think that at the same time, him calling now unlocks Dip a lot more as well, and what he could do in terms of like, how can I support as a Sova around the utility to get the best value for my ISO and my Jet, and then if everybody dies, I'm still going to be able to clutch it for the team. I think he's gone to like 3 clutches on Haven at least, and then I think even more clutches on Sunset for the second map, right? So they're the team overall now. It's not a team that like series. Exactly. They're not thinking
all
about
of which were 1v2s, by the way. That's crazy.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. It's like when you look 4 1v2s, 4
1v2s, bro.
There you go. Yeah.
that's kind of oh my god, that's I didn't even notice that until right now, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying. It was sick. It was sick. No. I mean, come on. This is a show. There's no apologizing. You cut over me whatever the hell you want. I'm just a yapping head, and you're the pro. But now I'm going to cut you. No, but needless to say, it's nice to see that from SAD Esports perspective, it's not about a team that's trying to think outside of the box and not finding success out of it, right? Because remember, last Challengers, last stage 1, that's when I think Darkest was coming out. Stage 1 or even stage 1, because Bob was still playing, and Darkest was playing like a Deadlock, if not mistaken, for Icebox. So you're trying like different things, but like it was maybe too early. Still trying to figure out the synergy around that. Box. But now. Exactly, but now they're still out of the box, but they're finding success out of it because they also have. Very, very strong, and also Reyna good. So keep an eye out for Reyna's on Icebox.
That being said, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Both of these teams
and a hot YFP, and a hot YFP in a week 6. Damn. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one.
Dude, oh no. But yeah, like Core is in a tough spot because they actually could technically qualify for playoffs, but also get relegated at the same time,
which is crazy. I don't want to open that Pandora box yet. Let's cross that bridge if we need to cross that bridge. If not, I'm swim across. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like everything I thought I knew was true is not true. I feel like Neo from the Matrix. I'm getting unplugged. I had MXS as one of the top teams, and they've not looked great for their last 2 matches. TSM, they're actually starting to kind of pull things together. This is probably the hardest week of predictions I think we've had so far.
Yeah. I know. And sorry, chat, by the way. Roy and I talking over each other a lot. I'm on hotel connection, so I'm kind of screwing up here. I'm screwing up our flow.
No, there's no flow being screwed up. We're doing just fine.
It's been good. This stage's been good for me for predictions. Don't count on me, chat, if you're relying on my predictions. This is just...
It's not financial advice.
Exactly. Zero. What's up, y'all? TLDR, we talked too much, and we ran out of time. So if you want to watch the rest and finish the conclusion conclusion of that video. Make sure you check our socials, click the video, and watch it there. Bye!
Hello everyone and welcome to another week of VALORANT Challengers North America. I'm your host Dryad and we're on week 5. Things are getting exciting, and if there's something that we know about Challengers, that we never know who's going to win. The matches are always close, there's always upsets happening. I'm so happy to be here and joined by Uber and I Whole Shift. And guys, you guys have had the chance to see a couple of these upsets take place. I feel like this is just the nature of it, Uber.
It is. I will say it's like very Challengers, right? We do see these teams really working hard throughout our stage 1 and stage 2 this year to leapfrog each other. Last week was, it was very tough to call, honestly. We finally saw Core just like show a little bit of life. They've had like a really slow start to this stage after being like genuinely competitive. And then I don't know what's going on in the MXS camp right now. And we're going to find out today, I suppose, as well. But they had a very, very odd week as well.
It's always the back and forth between the two. When you think, yeah, this team is looking good, they're 100% going to win, it's always the opposite. And that's why the teams that we're going to have today, Shift, they're kind of in that scenario. We're in the mid-table, they're trying to break through, they're trying to be the best, and they're still struggling with a couple of the smaller issues that they have to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just kind of echoing across what this stage has looked like compared to even last year, the dispersion between the top and the bottom is so tight. And that's why we're starting to see a lot of these upsets come through. I also think there's been a very dramatic shift in how things have gone in terms of things like meta compositions in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And some of the squads that have been a little bit more rooted towards trying to play kind of one style of composition or another are starting to get surprised a little bit by these newer, younger squads that are willing to innovate and try wild things. So it's definitely led to some chaos and a mix up in the table that makes it feel like still it's anyone's game at any given match that we have. So yeah, absolutely. Mid matches, right in the middle of the groups here, we've got teams that are 2-2, we've got teams that are 1-3 coming in, and of course Core, who are still looking for their first overall W. I think today could definitely be one of those we see 6 total maps is flat out.
Oh, yeah. It could be one of them doozies, right, that have us here until like 11 sort of Eastern time with how these teams go. The meta is obviously mixed up a lot. Obviously, with a lot of the changes we've seen to these agents. I also think that the addition of Haven back into the map pool with the subtraction of Breeze has been really big. And that's why we thought last week that TSM would actually struggle, because that was like their best map. I think they were 4-0 on Breeze up until sort of last week. And then they banned Haven. So all of a sudden, that slot that their best map occupied has turned into like a permaban, or at least a ban in that first week. So I thought they would actually really struggle in that series, Dan, but they managed to squeeze it out. It was ugly. I'll say that, up against Core. They did drop a map there, but yeah, I definitely felt like it could have gone either way.
I will say just quickly as well, the Breeze exit also hurt teams like MXS as well. Same situation where they were really comfortable on that map, and now all of a sudden you saw them against SAD have to pick Haven, and they didn't look particularly great there. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of map fluidity for some of our stronger teams overall in record that's going to have to be really adjusted into as we start to get to the back half of this stage.
And that's the thing, it's not only the maps where we have these questions of teams that are really good at specific map, like Breeze that we're not going to see anymore, and other maps as well, the addition of Haven. We have all these options, but I feel like the one thing that is always so NA Challengers is the compositions specifically that have been played, that I feel like I'm just never going to let it go, that we saw a composition that Fnatic was running, that we saw in Tier 2 NA first. Those are like some things that is just What is going on? We have a crazy amount of creativity for a lot, if not every single one of these teams. So I think it's going to be exciting to see as well how they've been adapting. We're on week 5. We have only week 6 left. So there's not a lot of options as well. But at this point, you have to have everything figured out for the most part. So let's jump. Let's go ahead and talk about what is going to be that first match of today. It's going to be Moist Shopify going against TSM and Uber. Moist Shopify last week. I don't know what happened. That's the thing. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, a couple things, honestly. First of all, Mata is still incredible. This guy, over the course of the entire series, is 18-4. 18-4. First kill, first death. I mean, the only player with, like, the next closest player in first kills is Ferbsa with 9, and that was on the sad side. So that is astounding to me. And honestly, he was consistent in this regard over both of those maps. But what we saw was MXS, they pick Haven. They pick Haven then into a sad comp that features Astra, Deadlock, and ISO. And they don't know how to play around it. It definitely looks... it made their retakes extremely difficult. And to be honest with you, Sad just walked up constantly onto that A site and got set up in a really strong post plant. So I do think that's one they would have had to go back and workshop. Then I think like the Sunset map to me is... Well, it was a bit more fundamental, I think, a lot of their issues there. Like, generally, like, Sad had an incredible defensive side. They really had it locked down. And a lot of it has to do because Ferbsa dropped 31 in regulation, just anchoring on that B site for most of the map. And MXS didn't figure a way to break through it. And that to me is more concerning, right? Because that is less wacky. That's less unexpected. You're going up against, like, a standard, like, Cypher comp against, like, with the Raze and Breach. So that to me is like, okay, they really need to tidy that up.
Yeah, I think the really compelling thing about that second half in particular for MXS was, hey, the fact of the matter was they really did shut down Skarn from having much of an impact overall, but it didn't make a difference because Ferbsa was so darn good. I mean, on the defensive side, he was 17-7. He was just locking down sites by himself. So, yeah, it definitely felt odd considering how much opening success MXS had. Lots of 5v4 situations, but they could not get through the hurdle of actually cracking onto the sites themselves. I mean, most of that defensive half was largely for Sad successful retakes, 4v5. So it's definitely odd to see, again, the success that we also talk about with MXS in post-plant situations not come through when they had numbers in a lot of those rounds. Definitely felt like a weird series.
And that's the thing, because it was against a Sad that had struggled for so many matches, and then out of nowhere, when you think Moist Shopify is going to win this, it's the other way around. Sad are able to close it out and finally get a win on the board that they haven't been able to do so. But Moist Shopify, I feel like this is a point of concern, and I get the point of, yeah, there's a couple of things in terms of the compositions and the idea that Sad always likes to run and maybe you're not used to, but that's just the job of these IGLs, the job of these coaches, that even if you don't know exactly what's happening, you're gonna have to figure it out on the way, especially in Challengers. As we've talked about, this scene is so creative. They're running a lot of different things. There's not a specific meta, even on Ascent, where you think that is the most. So a couple things to take into account, and we see meta as well, obviously, as Uber was mentioning, popping off on that map, fighting demons to see if they could get the win. It doesn't go their way. He ended up plus 14 on the first kills, which is, you know, a pretty big deal. Uber.
It's insane. And this guy was dragging his team, kicking and screaming through some of these maps. The Haven one was just a bit weird in general, I think. Like, the post plant that Deadlock puts together, as we kind of know, we already saw like popularized. We even saw it in Challengers before. We saw it in Champions. But Loud were playing a lot. Lows, for example, being able to get the wall down, after the fact. But also the Deadlock play in general from Sad was very, very good. And Darkest is actually able to use like the full kit of Deadlock over Haven like really effectively. Not just the wall and the post plant. When they went to defense, their util usage was also very, very good. This team is fine. They're 2-2. They're 2-2, and they have extremely quality players. We are getting close to promo relegation here, and obviously with playoffs looming. So they need to keep this. I just can't believe they're second last in this group. That to me is just a bit bonkers. But you have to understand that from 3rd through 5th are all 2-2 here. And MXS, even though they're 5th out of 6 in the group, are still a +10 map differential. So, that's fine. It's just that they're 4 and 6 in maps overall that they need to tidy that up a bit. You know what I'm saying?
I think the thing too, just to put it plainly, is that there's no more excuses for MXS not winning on these first bloods. You talked about it overall, but throughout this entire year in this particular Challenger season, 2.46 opening KD in first blood duels for Mata. The next closest is a 1.35.
That's crazy.
He's 59-24. 59-24. Win a freaking 5v4.
Their 5v4 conversion has been horrendous. It's
Come on.
Yeah. It's been crazy, but those are the small mistakes that we see for these teams. That's why they're in the mid-table, kind of lower table on the groups. But another team that has a little bit more of the same issues as well as the other team that's going to go against is going to be TSM. So let's talk a little bit about TSM, because I feel like I look at this team and every single one of these players is great. It's amazing. But when it comes to these matches, that's why when they struggle so much. We remember a couple of these players actually last year playing for Moist, when it was only Moist and not Moist Shopify. That was a Proto and Sim. And now you have this addition between Poise, GMD, 7 that are all great. I feel like 7 has been really stepping it up, but they are still just like Moist Shopify. They're 2-2 Uber.
Yeah, look, I think like TSM's map pool pretty heavily affected by the departure of Breeze. It was just generally their best map, and you can to some degree like ban them out pretty punishingly. Core kind of did that. Core banned Split and Lotus in that sort of series, and the Ascent map was the real telling one, right? Like TSM obviously looked pretty decent there. They want to play Bind when they can. They got Bind in that series. It was sort of fine. Like the Ascent map was really straightforward. It was one where like we got to see what Zeldris is actually able to do. And the 5v4 conversion was very good for Core on that map. So they were able to close it out. The Bind was not close. TSM's Bind really, really good. I mean, the way that like Gimon is able to find value constantly over the course of this map, and Sim was having a pretty pop-off day on Duelist. Icebox was a grind. They had the Rainer for Sim that ended up working really quite well, and so much of our discussion was like how they deal with like flood retakes, of course, and they'd like embed Rainer on the site in the post part. But everything sort of went to plan, even though as you'd expect, like Rainer was often getting traded out or losing in sort of first kill, first death. But these two definitely were a huge part of this series. I think like a Proto definitely relegated more to a role player over the course of that series.
Yes.
He was mostly sort of on like Cypher. I think he played Deadlock on one of the maps. Yeah, when he did, didn't exactly pop off, but Sim had a great series here. These guys are fine. I do wonder what like their, if they do get split banned against them consistently and they can't win on Ascent, then like I'm a little bit concerned about them. So they definitely need to find those map wins where they can.
I think the interesting thing kind of comparing the first part of the season to the second part is that a Proto has not been as much of a factor. I think a lot of it is because of the compositional swaps. Like you mentioned, he played 3 different agents in their most recent matchup, and it's transitioned to now Sim kind of taking a lot of the heavy lifting. I feel like kind of back in the first half of the season, Proto was one of the lockdown guys, especially with the buffs that came through for Cypher. It just felt like all of a sudden, okay, Sentinel players were going to start to steal the show in the first half of the season through, of course, the mid-season, and he was really, really solid. But over the course of this stage, these last couple of weeks, he just hasn't necessarily been as much of a factor. I think he's like 6-16 when it comes to first kill to first death, whereas first half of the season, he was often shutting down a lot of entry duelists. That hasn't been the case. So TSM's identity has shifted a touch, and it's kept them, again, relevant, but we still need to see them possibly topping up a team like MXS to be a major threat for the overall playoff scene.
And that's the thing, when you're going against your old team and you're a Proto and Sim, I feel like that changes the mentality of wanting to win and really stepping it up for those. And that's what we need to see for the side of TSM. But it's really going to depend on the map pool. Let's go and see what the map pool is going to look like, because it's back and forth. Sim is amazing on the operator, but I feel like such a good head-to-head when it comes to the duelists. And Shift, you see it was going to be Icebox, Bind, and Sunset, and Icebox is exactly that. The star players, the star duelists are going to go crazy, as we saw TSM do it last time.
Yeah, and I think Bind as well. It's not really like there's not a lot of benefit nor negativity, I think this map said, for either of these two squads. The one compelling one is if we do go 3, obviously it's an immediate bounce back to see what exactly MXS can do on this map after having dropped it to SAD. Whereas on the other side, it's been a pretty solid opportunity for TSM to win maps. But I think the curiosity point here is, are we going to get something weird from TSM? On these first 2 maps in particular, they have changed up what they run pretty regularly. Most recently, they did play Reyna on Icebox, and it was a huge issue for Core, especially when Core was on the defensive side. And then when we get to Bind, the Deadlock has been reintroduced here for the side of TSM. So there's a question there for MXS of how do they deal with that, as they really don't prefer to play the agent on that map.
These two are Bind teams, both MXS and TSM respectively. So I think this is actually a generally balanced map pool. I'm a little concerned about Sunset. I think the only time we saw TSM on that map in this stage, they lost 13-1, but they did have a decent crack at this in stage 2, because in stage 1 rather, I remember them actually beating M80 fairly handily on that Sunset map. So I actually go into this, and we're still seeing TSM ban that Haven, right? So that perma pick of Breeze has been replaced again by a map that they're always trying to ban. It definitely is going to make their map pool feel a little constricted. But we had a really long form interview with Faded last week, and he sort of said that generally like he felt that their map pool was still deep enough to deal with the departure of Breeze, and that they'd sort of been putting the work in to shore that up. They're not ready to show Haven yet, which is fine, but TSM wants to play Bind and Lotus and Split. Two of those have been taken away from them here, and that Sunset is a bit of a question mark for me. So, there's definitely a chance here for MXS to put some pressure on them, even just through the pick and ban.
And I'm just wondering on the set of Moist Shopify if they're going to change anything on the map number 1 of Icebox, because we saw it against Winthrop, and it was that map that they lost against a Winthrop that we know for struggling a little bit more. They're playing a lot of tournaments. They're playing in collegiate. They're playing here. They're playing in third-party tournaments. And so they lost that 11-13. They were playing that standard composition with the Gecko and the Jet. And on the other side, as you guys mentioned, it was a TSM that last week against Core. They won that 13-11 with the Reyna, but it was only the Reyna. So I'm just wondering how much you want to keep the Reyna, if there's a possibility of seeing maybe the ISO being played as we've seen in VCTs, as we've seen in other regions as well. A lot of players wanting to implement this instead of the Reyna, because the ISO does a little bit more than the Reyna, so it's just guaranteeing or analyzing how much you get the value out of the flashes, for example, when you're playing against a Harbor, or when you're just wanting to play the ISO, wanting to create the space, even as we saw Evil Geniuses do it this week for VCT. So there's a couple options here for Icebox and Sunset. I would bet more than not that we're gonna see a change, at least for one of these two compositions, Uber. But in general, I see us going to map 3. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I definitely think it's on the cards. These two teams have, I wouldn't say their map pools are similar, but the way that they overlap does leave these 3 as like sort of the key points of contention, at least with Breeze out of the mix right now. I think it's a shame that TSM don't want to play that Haven, because I am very curious to see how they look here. MXS have shown that they are willing to straight up pick that map if they possibly can, and I didn't think we saw anything from them that sort of blew the mind. They've obviously brought the Fade into the Haven comp now, alongside the Sova, that sort of double scan initiator setup here. So I think the map pool's really interesting, and I think it's also worth considering how stage 2 has looked for these teams on this pool in general. Bind should be a banger. I really have very high expectations for how that map should play out. That's sort of where I want to get. And I think that if we are expecting any compositional changes, then Icebox will be fairly compelling, but I don't think either of these teams are really going to try and reinvent the wheel on that kind of map here. So, I hate to say it, but it might really be a bit of a momentum and econ play on that map if you're trying to sort of pick which team has the edge there.
And I know everybody's asking, why haven't they started? Don't worry. The players are getting ready. It's not that we're just yapping for no reason. They're getting ready.
They can wait for us. That's exactly why we're keeping you guys waiting.
No, we just start when we want. That's how it works. But we get the chance to see in the meantime, Moist Shopify, the maps that they've been playing, the maps that they've been winning more than anything shift. And this is how it looked like. So obviously, as you guys were talking about, the Breeze, it was 4-0, no longer going to be an option. But they can rely on other maps that, they look pretty positive.
Yeah, I would say, in terms of total fluency across the current map pool, Moist Shopify actually holds a very significant advantage, I think, over some of the teams that are also in the middle of the pool, whether it be in Group A or Group B, just because they've gotten a lot of reps, but also, I think, importantly enough, they play a composition that doesn't necessarily get surprised often. They've got the ability to navigate through things like double initiators or multiple controllers, things of the nature. Whereas for TSM, I think, the Breeze exiting is a little bit of a pain point for them, just because they have gotten a lot of reps over it. And on top of that, they also, again, had a lot of really convincing results kind of through the first half of the season. But the question mark really relies on, can they get Haven into the mix? Because there are vulnerabilities across everything else. When your best map that's currently still in the pool is Bind at only a 60% win rate, you start to sweat a little bit, especially if you're continuing to build a couple of new compositions with Deadlock trying to be forced, essentially.
I don't know though why MXS are trying to ban Split so much. The only we did see MXS lose 13-1 on that map to Thinking Man, but that's way back in stage 1. It was generally a pretty good map for them. So that to me is a little bit curious. I don't know what's gone on for them that has sort of provoked this, but we're not going to find out today anyway, Dan.
Yeah, there's a couple things going on for the teams, and we're just trying to figure out. And a lot of the times I don't know. We're going to see what they're going to play, at least on this map of Icebox. This is the Zippo Engine Select. And guess what? It's going to be a Reyna against Reyna. This is my dream, by the way. For people who don't know, I love Reyna. Every time I get to see the Reyna, especially in Icebox where you can justify the most, I think it's great. But I'm going to leave you guys casters up to it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Rainer Mirror here. On this Icebox map, interestingly, obviously, we have double initiator versus double controller. TSM really want to make use of the Viper and Omen. We often see like an Omen smoke placed over towards Snowman behind the Viper wall. So you have two stages of being able to scale more aggressively, onto that side of the map. The KO here, though, are obviously going to be in play for Flyers. So just the Viper walls to work with, and you have less of that potential to throw one-ways or at least set these smokes up on a dime.
Yeah, it's the executable ability of MXS, right? I mean, we talked about it a lot last year. We talked about it a lot in the first half of the season. Their ability to execute on the offensive side and successfully retake on the defensive side often comes by way of flashing and dashing in. Now, the thing is, there's no more dash here because you've got Reyna instead of the Jet, which Mata has, I'm surprised to say, been very good on. So it'll be curious to add now what is essentially 3 flashes into the mix here for the side of MXS. Can they still get that deep pressure quickly, which has often been the success story of both their offensive executes and in particular on this defensive side, how they're able to contest spikes or find ways to retake, especially around that A site. So be really curious to see how they try to position Mata on the defensive side.
Both MXS and TSM looking to go above even, both at 2-2 now, heading into week number 5. And we're on the board with TSM on the attacking side. Early ping out there via that 0 point here, catching by the looks of things the entirety of this TSM team.
Yeah, and the walk up here for MXS is free. They haven't thrown anything. They get the information off that knife, and they know they've gotten at least numbers advantages here. So it's not just the walk up through A. They're also holding the rotation through the middle of the map. So pressure on. Vic has to try to hold the ground as long as possible while the isolation towards Poise is on the way, and it's perfect. So now TSM is dressed in a 4v5 early.
Yeah, see that Omen smoke there deep towards Snowman behind the Viper wall. So that's the standard setup for TSM. They've get themselves a post plant, but mid is so wide open to a late refrank. And there's even pressure from Odashimi here on the flank, who finds Seven, actually finds 2. I mean, the round's basically done there. The fact that Odorous can flank like that and get away with it is mental. It's just a Proto left here in a 1 versus 4. And you better start warming up with the fat lady because this one is done already. Strong pistol from MXS, all about that info gained off the 0 point.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. I mean, if they don't reveal as much as they do, I don't think you see the double walk down both in A as well as through mid. That's a complete isolation and just good overall awareness, knowing the fact that, let's be kind of candid, Poise is going to learn. It's just what he does best. So good isolation onto the first, and then that little bit of creation of space where MXS don't fully hit on the flank. It puts extra pressure on that TSM post plant sitting over towards yellow, where all of a sudden we got to watch behind us, we got to watch in front of us, and maybe a little bit of extra blessings that they did also catch Sim trying to get aggressive through the B site. So really clean stuff for MXS. Opening pistol now leads into 3 Bulldogs, a Stinger, and a Guardian, but TSM going to force their way with some Stingers as well. This could get interesting.
Mata looking to play forward here, not answer any pressure over towards Belt, but it's a much slower start here for TSM. Ambling forward. There will be an alarm bot to catch them. It's a very aggressive position from Mata, as not one he's looking to give up anytime soon.
Oh, he had that alarm bot. Will instantly throw a mock up as well, and yep, that is about as perfect as it gets. Following up, and then Brock on the pinch. This is absolutely perfect starting for MXS. Not going to get survived largely by Stingers. The Dizzy is held on late. It's just, yeah, that is picture perfect anti-eco rounds for MXS, only dropping 1 in the process.
Yeah, it moves them into a pretty compelling bonus here as well, Shift. So they're still holding onto 3 of those Bulldogs and a Guardian. Can start to save them up. And with Odashima's heroics, we're already well and truly on the way to that first lockdown being available. Mata, of course, farming people in these anti-ecos. So now, TSM. What do we work with here heading to a 3rd round? Not a whole lot. Did they force round 2?
Yeah, they bought the Stingers, yeah.
No, that is... Yeah, you're not wrong about Picture Perfect. That is devastating for TSM, though, because that looks pretty uninspired, given that they bought into that round.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden, this bonus not only becomes pretty much a winnable round because you're not in a bonus, you're in advantage, but it's going to turn round 4 into your bonus. I mean, it was a gut check call. I don't hate it from TSM trying to catch MXS off guard, but they had 1 remaining plus a plant. So, yeah, you're really hurting for credits here, and you're even going to turn that into a flawless for MXS. So they're running to the bank right now. I mean, this is Dogecoin times 10 for MXS, already up 3-0. Bank accounts are healthy. TSM into full Vandals, but now this is the quote-unquote bonus for MXS.
Oh my god, a 4th round bonus is actually disgusting.
Yep.
All right, this game has moved at a blazing pace so far, folks, and only Odashima here really needing to upgrade. Finds himself a Phantom. Already 6 ult orbs to his name. TSM now really need to slow this down and fast. We'll see the setup mostly over towards this B side here, but there's going to be a little bit of help for the Viper. Flyer wants to hold this long line. One deep, one over towards this short cubby. And they already heard that Dizzy go out now as the Proto wants to force them back, and Fly is getting value. Oh, buddy, through with the Bulldog. Now, at a player disadvantage, TSM with the better weapons have to cobble together something for B.
And this is just so MXS. Like you talked about, TSM, they want to try to laboriously break you down by setting up all this control. The ability for Proto to throw a smoke down towards Snowman. That is absolutely right. It counters out, in theory, all of Vic's presence. But the problem is, when you're getting good opening first duels like this for MXS, it doesn't matter what the backside of B looks like because you're already coming in with limited numbers. Now you're missing out on Sim and Seven. Sure, you're going to get a plant here, but for a 3v3, there's not a lot in terms of utility that TSM can use to hold this, and they're going to have to bunker up on the site.
Now, Wall threatens to break up the triple space that TSM are trying to put together on the bottom of the side. It's going to be brought me, boys. And he has a trash available. That's devastating. Boys caught by that one. And MXS convert on the round 4 bonus. Brawl could get himself some slightly better hardware and find the defuse. And TSM, they're in trouble.
Big time. And that, simply put, is down to the simple fact that TSM got caught trying to execute, and that's what MXS wants to do. They can play you aggressively, or they can hold back completely, drain you of all your utility, and then throw all these flashes at you. With this little double up play from Playa with Brock, so potent, so difficult to deal with when you don't have the ability to flash them off these angles. You don't want to spend your dark covers to win those angles. You have to peek that raw. And when you drop Sim, you drop Seven, you have no ability after that in that 3v3 to set up a dynamic post plant because you don't have any utility that can help you contest off the defense. So you have to play close, and that's where MXS will absolutely punish you. A 7-0 start for Brock, 5-1 for Mata, already working towards the Empress, and TSM have to talk about it already, which is not good news considering they've only had one gun round.
No, Fader probably has the microphone halfway down his throat at this point in this timeout for TSM. It's obviously a lot to discuss, and it's difficult to make anything really happen to this round. And what even hurts more is that Brock, he lets the Thrash go, gets a kill, and then defuse. So already well and truly on his way to the next iteration of that ultimate, which we've seen in that 1v1 was devastating, but in any case is a round-changing ability. Quiet for Vic, and again, you mentioned that the double controller presence pressuring that B side makes it a little hard for the anchoring Viper to maneuver here. But after the fact, being able to catch TSM off either mid-execute or post with multiple flashes like we saw from Brock there, that's why that double initiator comp is so powerful, even on defense.
Absolutely. And that's just what they've always done. And that's kind of what we're talking about. You know, some of the newer teams that are out there, or the teams that find themselves a little lower in the standings, are catching some squads surprised by the new composition metas that are coming through. But for MXS, they're known for playing a lot of double initiator play. They want to contest you. They want to get up close and personal and force you off these angles. And now you're starting to see what that does against a more normal composition. It's just surprising that Mata swaps off the Jet to find a way to get the job done with the Reyna, but it just adds an extra bit of visual distraction. So it's been pretty much picture perfect for MXS at this point. Empress at the ready. TSM still able to afford weapons here, but boy, do they need this round here, Mitch.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 of them at least down to these light shields. They haven't been able to invest too heavily outside of that. That's here, but 7 opens things up. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, losing Vic is pretty darn detrimental to MXS's defensive pressure. You have to rotate somebody over to help out with Flya, because the ability to not delay with things like Snakebite now forces Flya to have to force the issue. Does he just draw check this? Wow, that's bold. Sim able to find the kill, and now all of a sudden MXS just have to default to playing for retake at best in this 3v5.
A decent pace pushing up, at least on the A side, by Urashima there. With TSM any slower, you're able to find something, but Flyer maybe getting a little bit ahead of himself there with that swing. Opens up the site, but will be a flank opportunity here through mid. There's just not a lot of presence for the attackers here. They've all folded back for this sort of full retake setup. Now the Viper gas starting to regenerate. Mosh pit thrown down there. Here comes the Thrash, but this is going to be a little bit too late. 7 really needs to be a difference maker here. 2 versus 2. Mata in Empress, waiting for the peek around a corner, and 7 is felled. It's all up to Poised here. A tickle on the spike for Otoshima, and Poised has no choice but to check this. Wins it out though. Beautiful little 3K there from Poised. And not a moment too soon, TSM get on the board for a Zippo clutch.
Wow, I thought for a second Poised may have considered possibly dropping the lockdown there late, just forcing them to come to him, because he was in a really bad spot, honestly speaking, just kind of stuck over towards green. He didn't have any yellow control anymore. Mata's winning that over with Empress, and then all of a sudden you've got Otoshima, who was one off of a lockdown of his own, so it started to get a little bit tight, especially with the toggle on the spike, but Poised trusts his ability finds the 1v2, and more importantly, I think the thing about that is you can still afford coming into this next round here for TSM with ultimates to boot, Empress at the ready, Lockdown at the ready, and you're really close to possibly even getting a Viper's Pit, but MXS once again getting aggressive. TSM look prepared, and the first blood will go the way of the offense.
Another variation from Mana this time. Very extended. What a shame it doesn't have the ability to get out after taking that one, so it is just a done. Okay, so util set up on the site now for Nord. Brock able to back away at least before Seven threatened to rip his head clean off. Dizzy thrown out. We'll have a plant here now as Brock is sheltering below rafters. He's able to spring forward, find just the one, but it's just a trade here. Flyer though coming in from Boiler. Sim had to salvage, and now it's up to Vic, who's had a very quiet map so far. He's got to do something about this Reina in Empress, but there's no plant yet, and Vic is teasing him.
Damage advantage though. Snakebite could possibly just win this flat out if there is a plant. Sim will win back the angle, but look at Vic. He's going to track back as well. It's all about timing, and Sim finds it. Oh, that one got, again, a little bit too close for comfort for TSM, but they pull it out just in the nick of time. You thought for maybe a moment, Brock getting one, where he's just trying to trade his own life out, was crucial, but Flya, again, flashing in, not just finding the first, but also clearing out a second, feels like almost an impossibility, but that's what MXS love to do, is hit you with flashes, take you off these opening angles. It just so happened to be that Sim, even though tagged up against Vic, was able to call the rotation perfectly and catch Vic a bit off guard, so no kills yet for Vic on the board. TSM 2 in a row.
You notice that Reina comp doesn't have the ability to take control of top rafters as an attacking side, so it's hard to double face into Boiler. That's what Flyer was able to make use of there with that 2K. It gave MXX at least a fighting chance in that round. 0 point here, though, gets some info. This is going to pull over the rotate from Marta, at least to Kitchen.
Well, and look at, again, the stress that TSM have to worry about as they try to make their way through green. They just don't have the same ability to win these angles freely because everything is smokes. That's their only real option. You don't want to use Leers. You don't want to necessarily throw out the Dizzy early. That's what you need to execute onto the site for both those pieces of utility. So they're going to just double check, make sure nothing's over. Mata, a little bit of pressure through mid. Any spam shots from Guamon? Not quite. They do see one, but that's not really a ton of information. And honestly, for MXS, it'll also transmit that, yep, we need to make sure we're still holding over towards the safe site.
Guamon punished there for actually having a Bulldog and not a Vandal. Might have had a crack at Marta there. Either way, here's the lockdown coming down for the defenders. Most of TSM ready to play from outside of the range of this, but the plan was interrupted.
Yep.
So now the spike is across the map, and they have to respect this. Mosh Pit also to buy some more time here for Brock.
Poise surely just hits this with a lockdown of his own, though, to get back on the site. That has to be the option, and absolutely the case. So now it's just down to, does MXS want to try to stand tall and deal with the first blood? Mata very well may. If he can get one and dismiss away, he may get some separation. Great fragment to delay the hit from TSM as well.
Mata hangs around, though. Almost certain to be detained, but in a position to at least be traded now. And here's that again. Raptor's presence. This is a part of the map that TSM can't access in this way, but Sim wrapped around. Reina loves to throw down here on the site. And it's all up to Vic and Marta, who are pretty dispersed right now.
Yeah.
Marta needs to wait for the Viper to come.
No, he's not coming. This is going to be a save. There's just no way you break back through here in a 2v5. That's really, really well done by TSM. Yeah, it gets a little bit hairy for a moment with the defensive lockdown also denying the wingman plant initially, but having a lockdown of your own essentially guarantees that you can still play the round out, at least in more raw vanilla Valorant form. You don't have to worry necessarily about any extra utility coming through. And like you mentioned, that's kind of the one stress point when it comes to not playing a jet when you're attacking towards A. How do you get up and over to deal with rafters? That time it's just a Leer that gets thrown out, plus a double swing, one towards the inside port of Boiler, another towards the outside, and they completely bottle up that MXS defense, trying to still contest the spike. Really well done for TSM, and now 3 in a row with a couple of trade-off kills has MXS surely thinking about what they want to do with just a Thrash available.
Yeah, I think they'll buy into this still. Onerous obviously sees better days with his economy. There will be a timeout called now as well. MXS, I mean, look, looking back at that last round briefly, when they throw that lockdown down, it's all well and good, right? Especially because they interrupted the wingman plant. But what do you do with that space? Okay, you bleed some clock. Fair enough, totally fine. There's also like a mosh pit thrown down by Brock to stall even more. Great. There's a fragment thrown down, stall even more. Also fine. But then what? You're forced off the site here. You do, in theory, have the flash util to get yourself back in had you not sort of used it maybe to stall a little bit or to try and take a fight. So, you know, TSM get to just push back in here with the Reina and obviously have some of the util left as they sat and waited on it for the lockdown to expire.
It's just one of those things that I think that these compositions really do just kind of make you feel, I would say, more, I don't want to say interested, but maybe more to the edge of your seat when there are not ultimates available. I think that's the bigger point, because it really is the ability of execution for MXS versus just straight up control for TSM. It's almost like the unstoppable object meets the immovable force, whatever you want to call it. You know, you got to find a way, I think, if you're MXS now in these rounds, to continue to find the same success story that you had early, which is win these opening angles, force TSM to make tough decisions in terms of what abilities and utility they want to spend when there aren't things like lockdowns or Thrash or Viper's Pit available. So that seems, I think, to be the case. Now, this is an interesting idea because the same lockdown, or pardon me, the same knife gets thrown, but it's a different setup around it. It's a heavy push over through tunnel, as MXS are realizing that TSM really aren't making any gut check calls over through yellow. So now they're trying to challenge the rotation through the middle of the map.
Risky business there for Flyer. He opts not to overextend on this occasion. So TSM have managed to get themselves back into A, and essentially MXS, rather none the wiser, must have had a feeling about the players sort of rotating across here, but TSM obviously showed 3 of it towards the B side. Here comes the hit. Okay, the Vitals will throw it up here. Going to have a wingman plant, and Sim will just sit here by Jen. So it's time to fight for Boiler.
And this is all going to be about retaking with the Thrash, flat out. There's no other way about it. I am surprised they're not trying to play off
too far away
here, though, because, yep, the Thrash is simply way too far away. Also, the counter for 7 can essentially counteract any MXS pressure moving forward. Both get spent. Now a reset as we go back into the 5v5.
Again, it's Sim finding value there on top of 410, able to back away comfortably, and the trades are weaker for MXS. That is dirty. Sim knew exactly where to have that crosshair aimed down. It's going to be Mata at 17 HP and Brock left to do it all. 45 health and a dream here. There's just nothing to be done. TSM have found their way back into this game, tooth and claw, mind you. Round at a time, we're even at 4 apiece.
Yeah, really, really good from TSM. And I think the thing that I'm loving the most about this is they are absolutely reading the telegraphed ideas that MXS have. You go back to the lockdown round, we know they're going to spend it, so we'll just spend one of our own. No worries. We just get the same ground that we would have gotten anyways. Same situation here. The fact that they get the wingman to plant, though, that's the difference maker, because you know the Thrash is going to be spent, and when you don't get any contact through mid, you don't get any contact on your execute up in towards A, you know that MXS is going to be playing the Thrash for retake. But because the wingman gets the plant, now 7 earns one of his own, and you just go alt for alt, info for info. Really well done for TSM. This is where things will start to get interesting, though, because the post plant, if they could find one, will be reinforced by the Viper's Pit. And once again, you've got MXS trying to challenge through mid, but this should surely lead to a quick hit over towards the B site, and it will.
Yeah, I mean, the site has been left completely untouched here, as it ended up being a trade. Poised has been very, very hard for MXS to get a read on so far this map. Always an odd angle to come from. Nice flash, but the timing isn't quite there. A little too late on the swing here for Gimel. All right, Snakebite try to cover that up and keep that player at bay now as they turn their attention towards a plant that still needs to happen.
Yeah, I almost don't love this from the side of TSM, because you've got the Viper's Pit ready at the get-go, but instead they're trying to outflash MXS through Snowman. So now this Viper's Pit has to be used just to confirm the plant, and I will say a little bit lucky that none of the spam is landing, at least not fully, because GMD's down to 2 HP, and this is going to be tough to hold.
Viper's Pit, they're a little bit limiting in terms of where the attackers can hide, and that gets brought down. A Proto, nothing he could do as that Viper's Pit ends up dissipating. There was so much attention, pressure being placed towards back Snowman there before there was even a plant set up.
Yep.
And then the Viper's wall pre-plant tells you so much about the stress, I guess, that TSM are suffering.
I think a lot of that is just off TSM getting the read that, hey, there's a heavy-handed approach here for MXS through mid, so let's see if we can actually just scale through B and then take away their opportunity for retake. But when you've got the Viper's Pit as your essential guarantee for post-plant, I'm just surprised they don't just drop the Viper's Pit deep through Snowman and then just trust that your flashes from yellow can stop any hit through mid. It just sections off the site to where the retake from that topside kitchen, backside Snowman just isn't available, but they try to beat them on the 1v1s. And again, MXS find just as much value as TSM do in terms of flashing in the backside of it. So the Viper's Pit ends up not really meaning for too much. And that seems like a round that I'm sure TSM, they may, in retrospect, want to go back and try to replay, as this time it's just going to raw peak from Sim on Mata. 1v1 goes the way of MXS for the opening duel.
And 0 Point did not see anybody over at B shift. So MXS have a decent idea now that there's going to be some mid-pressure, especially with a trade lost out there over on the A side. I brought it out as well, though. The Omen angle, always an unexpected one. He's able to find 2 there, which is a little ridiculous. That's even the odds. We'll still see the anchoring pressure here for Vic over at B should there be a swing away. And that is a Thrash that finds little value as Poise stands his ground.
Yeah, this is big for Poise. He doesn't have to do anything besides stay here. Just keep your life, kill time, and allow the rest of your teammates to rotate up. The problem is the surround is in, and MXS is going to find him from behind. No worries. The dismiss back, and Vic already knows there could be a plan happening here at B.
And a Thrash recovered here for the later part of the round shift. Crucially now, a player advantage for MXS. And Brooke should have been able to get in there and pick it up. Unclear if he's done that, but still a player here. On side itself, and yep. Rusty 2, Electric Boogaloo. TSM obviously have 7 down range, able to see that coming, but yeah, they know Gimon is waiting bottom side. It's a trade, and it's up to 7 now in the 1 versus 2. Both Brook and Vic healthy as you like. Obviously no way to make use of any further utility except that mosh pit for 7. He has to take this raw into the pit. For a penny. In for a pound, that's 1 traded out here, and MXS scrape out 2 rounds in a row.
Yeah, with a better weapon, that's actually very doable for 7, I think. But the Guardian through the smoke, just so tough, because you're right, that Mosh could have delayed long enough in a post-plant molly to give him a chance at the 1v2. But another moment where MXS just kind of find a way to finagle their way back in. I really have to give a lot of credit to Poise. That's a great position for him to be in. It just comes down to the simple fact that MXS were so quick to be able to recover on it. Even though it's expensive for Brock having to spend the Thrash initially plus the Dizzy, that's the beauty of the Gecko, baby. He can just pick him right back up again. So it really doesn't feel like an expenditure for MXS to get that isolation. A decent idea, but if Poise could get one more, it would have been different. And how about this, Mitch? You want to talk about different? How about the Empress up and early? There is a knife that comes through to reveal that Sim is nearby, but not frisky enough as Mata. He's just going to hold this space and play the cross angle with Flya.
Yeah, always a variation in these early round positionings for Mata.
There.
2 Empresses, 1 Crown, and TSM with a bit of a slow default approach to this round. Flyer is in a position to attempt to trade. Now with that pressure on Sim, though, this is definitely going to make TSM think twice about any B pressure here.
Goodness, I love this call from Mata. He knows the damage is confirmed, so now he can get to work, getting aggressive, and his timing may be absolutely freaking flawless. Able to find one, dismiss away, no worries whatsoever. TSM are now stuck on the A side of the map.
They're going to be funneled in here. In fairness, it's just them, KJ, and a bunch of her util to deal with here. That's going to now be deployed by MXS to slow these attackers down. Mosh thrown up. Here's the Lear.
No
Immediately,
way.
though, some Rafters control being taken, and 7 gets picked off. That's on the rotate threading. Brock was sat watching mid. 15 kills for Brock, by the way, having an absolute day of it so far. Sim set up here with Emperor still, mind you, but only down to 50 HP, and a triple overload towards Rafters will be too much to handle.
What a freaking leer from Mata. Just throws it onto the ground. I mean, they know that he's playing up. They hear the spam shots coming through initially, and honestly, the only thing for TSM they could really rely on was that Empress from Sim. So as soon as you know someone's playing close, you throw the leer into the site, you double swing, 1 over through the backside of Generators, the other 2 up top at Raptors. No way that Sim could do too much from that position. And that ends up being now 3 in a row for MXS, and TSM going into the last round of the half really don't have much to work with. You have to try to get an orb or a kill here for 7, I think, to get the Thrash online. Maybe the better news is if you can find a way to orb for Poised, plant for 7, maybe you get a lockdown as well. Seems like the best opportunity here for TSM to get a 5th.
Yeah, get a Thrash into the game would be crucial. Again, the same long angle being held by Flyer. Mata assuming the same position as last round, albeit a little slower with the walk up. And here's that 0 point, which catches no one. They play just outside of it.
And the thing about this, Mitch, is that TSM don't know that Mata played this position last time around. Yep, thank you for the intel. Thank you for the free first blood. Dude, Rain is so damn slippery in the right hands. That's ridiculous.
Yep. And as powerful as ISO is, he can't quite do that.
Exactly.
Unpunishable positioning there for Mata. The timing! Okay, could have been big, but basically all the King's horses watching that particular angle. Mata eventually is going to be brought down. Now things start to unravel a little bit over towards the B site. And we'll have the standard Viper Wall thrown up here. Player desperate swing, always so aggressive. Almost gets punished, was able to back away and also throw the Null Command down.
Yeah, the low command's actually super important here because there was a pretty inevitable hit coming through, but now TSM are just going to try to quick rotate back. They've read this correctly. And again, can you get the spike to Poised here? Let him plant, earn the lockdown. I think that might be the play, unless there's a chance for him to grab this orb here. I don't know if that was actually pushed up to grab by MXS or not. I don't believe it was. No, it's still there. Left. So if you're Poised, you want this orb really badly, but he's just going to lock things down on the backside of this. And look at the setup for MXS. Odashima already in position to try to get the nano swarms out. Spike will be planted, though. MXS has to play retake.
Here we go, Flyer in from Boiler. There is some presence here. at Rafters. It had to be an A plant here, as Wingman would just cease to exist under that null command presence. TSM make a decisive move. And it's not too late either. They had plenty of time to work with pre-plant, like 24 seconds.
No way.
Curtain comes down. And it's done for TSM now with only 2 to work with and no inclination yet to use the lockdown. It's going to be thrown up now. There might be time for Vic to get a full defuse here, but he just tickled it in the end. Now he's going to push up ahead of this. It feels pretty unwinnable now. Can he take 2 1 versus 1s? Gets rid of the lockdown. Time is ticking. Listen to the spike. What? Oh, Vic. Waiting for boys to appear. It's not doable. There's no time. MXS player close with TSM get one before the half.
Yeah, really well done by TSM. I love the idea and the timing of their commitment to know null command pop. They also got to read that at least one more member was over towards B. If not, they had the full information that all 3 of the remaining members for MXS were still over towards the B site. So you just drop out the weapons, you pull up the knives, you run over to A, and all of the ultimates they needed get earned in just the nick of time. Poised finding that one trade so darn crucial, because that lockdown doesn't get placed, things look very, very different. It doesn't force the hand of Flya. It allows Vic to play a little bit more strategically, maybe even toggling the spike, but outside of the heroics of finding the 2 kills, not enough time to get the defuse. So all things told, a very fun half of Valorant between these 2 squads as we jump into the second pistol.
This is the Observer equivalent of the teeth in the Route 66 attacking spawn room in Overwatch, right? Tiles that look like teeth that you can't unsee. It just gets thrown up to throw me off here. Shout out our Obs team. Second half here on Icebox kicking off. Flyer sees the Reyna stuck on site and is obviously not shocked at all. Slow going. We'll check that smoke there. It's definitely slowed MXS up, and they do not opt to really make use of this frozen here until up goes the Viper.
And here's the thing, again, the amount of flashes that MXS have, TSM to be very clinical about how they want to play defense, because if you get caught on a corner with a flashed ability, you're just dead to rights out here. And how about this? MXS really don't even need to spend too much. They still have a flash available for this post plant. Difficult situation here for TSM, just relying on Seven's utility with Sim possibly throwing a Leer to get back in.
Yeah, interesting to play full retake with only with the double controller setup here. Marta gets to sit up in this position, but Sim's been playing that one all game. It doesn't seem to matter. Good damage there. Proto eventually going to be brought down. Marta able to top himself up here. Has a chance to once more throw himself into the breach. Okay, Flyer there. Briefly blinded up by Dizzy, but still able to capitalize. It's GMD in 1 versus 2. The time is short. As is Vic's lifespan, or rather GMD's, as Vic finds 3 in the round, and that's exactly what MXS looking for, that pistol to kick off the second half.
Yeah, and TSM are going to have to make a decision here, I think, just based on their composition in terms of, do we want to play aggressive and try to stop MXS before they can even hit the go button towards one of these 2 sites? Or are we going to try to get a read on the setups and then full flood for their retakes? Because there's not going to be an opportunity for them to really stand on site too much. Outside of the ability for players like maybe Guamon to set something up to allow players to stay a little bit deeper, the amount of flashes that MXS have are going to push off these opening angles so convincingly. So they either need to flood with utility early or hold off, in my mind, to try to see if they could just play retake like they have in that first pistol. This time Sim trying to get aggressive, trying to look for something cheeky with the Sheriff, comes up empty, and this should be a pretty free approach here for MXS. One more quick challenge though. TSM still holding these tight corners, but figure a flash is going to be very punishing here if MXS decide to commit to this B site.
They fixated on yellow shift because I think the 0 point spot someone out there. That is just absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
Okay, Brooke. Yep. Fair enough, buddy. Nicely done. Straight through the wall. Finds an easy one. And 7 eventually capitulates here. MXS converting here on that pistol round win. Nice way to move through the round. And again, didn't get caught out by anyone lying in wait at B.
Yep.
Having that extra initiator gave them that info of the player at yellow.
That's going to be that, and that right there, that little picture, that little third-person perspective we have, that's why TSM are not going to be able to play off angles like that or hold angles over towards like 410 or over towards yellow, because all it takes is one Dizzy or one flash or one Leer, and that will give you all of the ability to take those gunfights 100% of the time if you're MXS. So that's why I think if you're TSM getting deeper into this half, you're going to have to make the decision of, do we want to try to full contest something early, throw out some controllability, maybe try to catch someone by surprise with a little bit of a trap play, or are we going to stay back and have to play full retake once MXS throw all their flashes?
Corner spotted out there by Flyer, and that might have been meant to bounce back towards them into the corner they couldn't see, but either way, cleared. Flyer here just waiting on the flash. This will be a quick pop on towards B. Are going to make his way over. Okay, briefly Unable to see, we're still able to win it out there. Nice little Nana Swarm. They're coming back the other way. Poise really sets it up beautifully, and this allows Sim to actually get set up here in yellow, but MXS are pulling out one by one.
And Sim's in a 1-for-1 spot. Well, not really. It's a 1-for-none spot, hopefully, because he can dismiss, but that's, again, the power. You see it. Dizzy first, Flash is second, Lear third. It's just so hard to hold your ground. But how about it? A little bit of an off timing. Catches MXS. Not sleeping necessarily because the rotation's well underway, but at least eliminates the ability for a lurk. 35 seconds on the clock. That will also likely be enough for TSM to know this is not going to be a B hit. That knife will pretty much guarantee it, and the defense will start to make their way over.
30 seconds left.
Urashima, basically a breathing alarm bot there, as he just had a ghost to hand. And they probably wanted him to spot out any advancement from the defenders there. That's not a pop flash. Poise, though. Little too canny for that. Able to duck away from it, and Flyer comes off easily second best in that exchange. Rafters presence now. Dizzy thrown to the low ground, and Flyer extends into that fight against Poise. Gets crushed.
Done.
Nice timing from Mada. Oh, the dismiss was good, but not good enough. And now it's up to Brock, who tried to slow things down with the mosh pit. Sim swings on it.
Don't insult me.
Rain isn't swinging. Color me surprised, Mitch.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Who would have figured? Important round there, though. I think it all just kind of starts and ends with the fact that Odorous just doesn't be allowed to lurk towards B, because, you know, that whole rotation is all about trying to get the plant down and then having Odorous just kind of hang out at mid-map. But them getting aggressive, finding the timing for TSM's defense, eliminates that threat, and now all of a sudden you can play off the backside where MXS are going to be a little bit too stressed, trying to deal with the flank while also dealing with the front at the same time. Important round here, though. 9v6, full weapons across the board with just 7 on a Guardian, but you got the Null Command and the Thrash on one side here for the offense. Expect that those are going to be your executable tools, and then we'll see what is still remaining if Sim wants to pop this Empress possibly in this round to try to counter and just go God mode.
We saw Seven's route with the Flash attacking A in the first half, right? Over 410 into Crow's Nest and then onto Rafters, hitting 2 players. So again, even though you don't have a jet that can dash up there, you can control that space with the Thrash. Good ultimates for a hard hit here, and the timing is good for MXS. Would love their 10th. Free ult for Mata, Empress time.
Yeah, both players able to pop the Empress here in this round as TSM. This is what I was kind of talking about from before. They're looking to contest off of all this. They're stacking the box, assuming that there's going to be a hit over towards A. Not the case, though, at least not at the moment. 60 seconds remain. The defense going to have to stretch back over. And again, just figure that everything is going to rely on what does Brock see first with this Thrash, clearing out green initially, and then expect that Flya, as soon as they try to get the spike over, will pop the Null Command simultaneously. This is all about Flash executes and denying utility for TSM here.
Yeah, stack up of util there from TSM. Both the Omen and the Viper throw the one way. A little bit of a waste of Omen smoke there, if I'm honest. But it has slowed the attackers down, as you'd expect. But they do give up their presence here, but they get a Thrash again. Sim has been the one left at A to anchor it under Empress.
And the thing about this, TSM is in a perfect spot to deal with this. Depending they don't get nauseous or nervy about what's happening over towards A, which Brock is throwing out fakes, and no, wouldn't you know it, he's pulled the defense completely. So you're going to get the Null Command here in about 5 to 10 seconds over towards the outside at B, and there is going to be absolutely nothing that TSM can do to stop this. Most importantly, they don't have much for a retake outside of possibly a Paranoia, and then something like a Dizzy from 7. This is going to be a very mixy retake attempt.
I will say, though, MXS haven't been able to advance past the site. They haven't got any snowman control. They're still very susceptible to these like reflanks from mid here, but no one's going to wrap around behind them. Mart able to back away here, Devour. Top right back up. What is that smoke?
I just don't know how you get this deep if you're TSM. This is so tough for them to break down.
Boys wins it out, though. That's the Empress Rainer down now for MXS. Flyer, though, gets involved. Brock on the swing. Again, sick game for Brock, but a Proto's wrapping around the back of Yellow. They've got to be ready for this, and Vic is there. 2 versus 1, poised. The shining light for TSM has to give up the ghost here in this round. Kick the Phantom. And he won't even be allowed to do that. Vic catches him by the heel and cements the 10th for MXS.
That's so tough for TSM, and that's, again, the power of having extra flashes compared to just dealing with smokes. Even TSM, they can at least block off some side angles with things like dark coverage, so the Mosh also being spent. The Paranoia gets thrown across Yellow, but the whole post plant just steps away. They can just play off of where the spike is planted. And when you've got the ability to repeat because of the extra flashes in the kit, it makes this so much easier. So yeah, it's just one of those situations that TSM just get baited out. I think if they hold their ground, they don't get faked. I think that round obviously looks very different, not only because TSM could battle back, but I think they actually probably win out on that exchange, getting just the information and where the hit's coming from. But now that's dealing with just a limited amount of utility and weaponry for TSM. They try to do something cheeky with Sim. He gets caught. now the only real hope is that Seven can put something together with a classic, maybe a little bit of help from the Bulldog above him.
That is some extreme cope. That is a mega cope.
You can always count on me for extreme cope, Mitch.
Gonna be a struggle. You're not a codcaster for nothing, I guess. It's tough here. I don't know if this was supposed to be a one-way. So this is supposed to be a one-way or to slow down here the attack for MXS. Probably the former. And they are waiting on this. Obviously, again, with the Dizzy refresh to be thrown out. Still with the Lear to hand. So much flash util, and they have no reason to be going elsewhere with this.
Good March as well. Yeah, Seven's dead.
So dead.
There's just nowhere to go. Yeah, it was a hard press round to figure it was going to come through for TSM. But all of that just hinges on the fact that Sim is trying to play a 1-for-1 or something of the nature, trying to get aggressive, catch a timing through A. It doesn't work out.
I mean, now we know that yours was like the Hindenburg was a social experiment levels of cope at the start of this round. Extreme. Now, again, with nothing but churros. And I'm not going to sell you a kipper, folks. It's going to be virtually impossible. Mada mows them down, taking MXS to 11.
Yeah, 2 kills around from getting another Empress, and essentially 2 rounds through the 3 rounds. Just casual reign of things. It is one of those situations. I think TSM, you got to start to challenge up front here and try to maybe get a little bit of a trap play, maybe even try to throw something like an early paranoia. I just feel like the space that MXS are getting early towards either of these 2 sites, I won't say it's free, but it is comfortable because they have the ability of throwing at a Dizzy early, getting it back, throwing it again for the execute. I think you just need to do a little bit more here if you're TSM to put some extra stress on MXS on their executions. And I think importantly enough, when you're running double controller like you are for TSM, it doesn't necessarily matter too much if you drop someone like an Omen off of an opening paranoia because you still have follow-up behind it. But if MXS lose out on something like Flya or Brock, that changes how their execute looks. Even if you go 4v4 through the majority of the round, if you can deal with the KO or the Gecko early, MXS are going to have a harder time actually finding successful break-ins to these sites. So I think if you're TSM, I'd like to set up a little bit more aggressive here in this round and see if you can force MXS down the road to have to commit more of the utility early in these rounds to make life a little bit easier.
Biggest difference between Sim and Mata is that the former has not been taking any of those early audacious plays, to be able to be unpunishable behind that dismiss. Anchoring a lot on these sites, as we've seen over the past couple of rounds. Mata's very active. Really active early in the round. We saw it at the drop down right towards jail, free kill, dismiss away, player advantage achieved. Yes, it was anti-eco, but still the kind of mindset that really starts to win you games here. Now, Sim tried to be proactive, but all this flash util for the double initiator forced him off the angle.
Yeah, but they still have Proto with an operator, so that's how they're going to challenge this opening angle through A. Now, it does have to come at a bit of a cost, because if you're going to 3-stack this, something is open. At the moment, they have to voluntarily get rid of green, and at the same rate, look where Seven has to position. He has to hold over deep towards kitchen, because there's no one watching over the middle with this extra poise utility sitting inside the site.
Raptors now. A Proto tried to take that aggressive off angle early. Got nothing for it. MXS had no reason to expect there to be an operator embedded in that part of the A site, but they still play knowing there could be an odd investment of some description for TSM here. Also, it's a thrash round for the defenders, so something worth respecting.
And lockdown as well, in case things get really hairy. So if you're MXS, you're trying to see if you can bait out one of those 2 early. Wingman for the plant, and there will not be any opportunity for a TSM to contest this. Odashima looking for timing up through kitchen. He does get scouted out, so has to back off the angle. But keep your eye on Vic. He is completely unguarded here at mid.
Sees Thrash go past, not spotted out. Vic has an opportunity here. Martin has already pushed up. Look at the map control rather for MXS. The Proto stuck in spawn with an operator. Just to remind you, able to at least hit that paranoia here, but remember that plant still needs to be dealt with. Here's the lockdown over on the B side now, but MXS push ahead of it, break the lockdown. I want to get their hands dirty. Brock rips him to shreds. But now a defuse here, care of Wingman. This has to be a quick run, otherwise this is going to get defused. Gets it to half and counting. Somebody stop Wingman, and they finally do. The explosion here through mid. TSM can't quite get it done. Seven halved it, but half is not enough.
Yeah, tough scenes right there. Proto getting gate kept over through the backside of A was more important than it may have seemed. I mean, obviously he misses the op shot, but he has to spend the paranoia. And then more importantly, if that op can come back through into mid, that is actually a very winnable round for 7. All it took was one elimination. That's all they needed, because MXS would have had to deal with that play through backside tube while also trying to challenge the spike, which was not in a great spot to be watched over for the post plant. So definitely a winnable round for TSM, but the pressure through the middle of the map and the double lurk through A, just too much to deal with. An expensive round for TSM. They're obviously in a force buy situation now with just Guardians, and MXS are going to pull off the old tried and true day one playbook of we're just better, let's run it up.
Yeah, they threw like an anti-aggressive Rainer flash at the start of the round to make sure they could get towards green unscathed. Also 0 pointing yellow. So they've realized, hold on, TSM playing so passively here. And here's the Viper's pit. We're all going to dive into it.
I
They're
love
looking
it.
for a timing ahead of it. This is awkward though. Lear at the ground. Marta didn't check the corner. We were able to see Poise find one. 4 versus 4. Brock obviously low from that decay. Timon sat inside this.
I mean, Brock just has to wait for someone to toggle the spike, and then he can just step up. That's all he's waiting for.
Timon doesn't know whether to go for it. 5 HP in a dream. Even some spray through the pit would have got the job done, rather. And it's fire from Yellow with 3. God damn, that was pretty anticlimactic, really. We really build it up for you, folks. Best we can do, but eventually the gameplay told the whole story. As MXS, the last round on Anecdote for the whole map itself, pretty darn one-sided.
Yeah, initiation beats control in this particular instance. It's just, there are so many freaking flashes, Mitch. It's just, I can only imagine how many seconds of white screen time that TSM have trying to play these executes on the offensive side, and then again on the retakes. I mean, every time we swap to somebody for MXS swinging into a play, at least 2 of the 3 members that were trying to defend were flashed. It is just so much deterrence, and when you've got the ability for players like Flya to individually play off of their own timings, same situation when you've got the Reyna, it's just too easy for MXS. The control ability that TSM tried to put together, just not able to get them deep enough to contest all these executes coming through off of the amount of flashes, millions of them from the side of MXS. Great stuff from them.
Absolutely, and our TSM are going to have to rely on their map pick of bind on the other side of this break, folks. First map and our first match of the day done. It's MXS with a dominant victory on Icebox. We'll see you for map 2 in just a moment.
Go-to comfort food has to be pizza, I would say. Just an easy, nice, quick food.
First thing that comes to my head is avocado toast with some egg. That's like the thing I always have nowadays. Just like whenever I can't make, I don't have any food, or like, you know, I don't have any ideas. It's just that one. Like, it's really quick: toast, avocado, and then egg. Like very, very quick. So I like that.
I like some good old-fashioned chicken and rice. It's my favorite.
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot of comfort foods for me. I don't even know what to say. Maybe like chicken wings, like maybe like some good like barbecue or spicy wings. Always hits.
I'll say my go-to comfort food is probably just like Chipotle. I really like Chipotle. You know, it's fresh and somewhat healthy. So yeah, I like Chipotle.
My go-to comfort food is a Vietnamese dish called balo blat, and it translates to shaking beef, and it's just like marinated beef cubes or steak bites. And like, if I could eat that for like the rest of my life, I would eat that like every day.
Man, I don't know. I like Korean food a lot. So honestly, like pork belly, kimchi, white rice, like every Wednesday, I call it Pork Belly Wednesday. At my local place, they do 50% off pork belly, and I do that. I do that every week.
I'd say lately it's been like a chicken parm with like a side of pasta. Definitely, I've been getting that pretty consistently from a couple places.
Honestly, you never go wrong with a hamburger, so I'll go with a burger.
Oh my. I think my comfort food right now, well, since I'm in Texas, I don't really have one in Texas, but like back where I'm from Canada, right? My comfort food is shawarma. That's my favorite food. And like my whole team knows about this and stuff like that. Shawarma is always my go-to. There is sushi, honestly, but like I could eat shawarma any day of the week. Like honestly, like that's just so good.
My go-to comfort food would probably be sushi. Just any kind of sushi, really.
I'd probably say like, probably just like some Doritos, something like that. Nice little snack.
The game starts long before the game starts. And warm hands are faster hands. Gain the upper hand and power up your pregame warm-up with Zippo hand warmers.
Peace.